Good morning, Iyar.
Good reason. Yeah, but he's in the show right now. I gotta go.
Okay, so we are in the middle of it. We are towards the bottom of the page.
Which page?
About 10 lines. Yud Zayin. Yud Zayin. About 10 lines from the bottom. The line starts with Etzem Hamayim, and we were in the middle of a long discussion trying to explain a new principle in the union of the Etzem HaKoyach. And just to bring us back onto the point where we're discussing, a whole long presentation earlier was based on the principle that every koyach possesses an ingredient of all other koyachs. And that is due to the fact that every koyach is rooted in the etzem. And in etzem, yesh boy hakoil, there is everything. Therefore, every koyach is actually representing etzem. And therefore, in every koyach, there are all the components, everything that is in the etzem, there is in every koyach. Except that normally, when the koyach is first presented, first identified, it is identified as uniquely that particular koyach. But then, when this koyach opens up and identifies all the ingredients, everything that is contained therein, that gives it everything that gives it a presence, then all kinds of different qualities, ingredients show up. So that what gives chesed a presence, the inclusion of gvura in every other koyach. And because of this, there is that ultimate hischabers, or interaction and recognition and acceptance of one koyach by the other, where chesed can accept and give room for gvura and gvura likewise. And this
Can I ask a question, Paltiel?
Go ahead, buddy.
I didn't understand this when you said it the first time. You may have explained it, but I may have missed the explanation. Why is it that the koyach, in order to have a presence, has to have and recognize these other elements within it? What is it about that gives it presence, and why is it without that it wouldn't have a presence?
The truth is that particular point we did not really elaborate on.
Is it worth elaborating on here, or it's already?
It's very worth if I'm not going to lose my audience. All right.
That was the notch.
By what? By popular agreement, you're going to go into that. We go back to our Rambam. When the Rambam says that the foundation of all foundations and the primary principle to have chokhmah. And in this, right now, we have to further explain what does it mean to have chokhmah. What is chokhmah? In order to understand chokhmah, we're going off completely. It's a whole big discussion. But again, if you guys are ready for it.
I withdraw. So.
No, this is enough.
It's too late, Baruch, to withdraw.
Get back around the rest of the road, right?
It was important not.
It's important, but you have to be up to it.
Point on it.
What is the reason that the whole world fails to recognize godliness in the world? There is no mitzias except for godliness. And yet, not that they fail to recognize it, and with all the convoluted, ridiculous explanations, they rather accept a totally idiotic concept than accept God. What's in it? There's one principle. In order to deal with anything, there has to be a sense of reality. What are you talking about? The tangible is a tangible reality. They cannot budge from that. The tangible, that is the base. Then we try to understand all the combinations, what happens, how they build, but basically what it is the tangible. Because the tangible, what is so great about the tangible? The tangible is a presence that does not require you to consent that it exists. It exists because it exists. And therefore, this is the basis of all existence as far as these Chachomim is concerned. I'm looking for Avram. And go to right, can you pick up a box of tissues someplace? Thank you. Stop. However,
but what's this thing about tangible? I didn't. That's we accept tangible because it cannot be refuted. What was this point?
Yeah. Tangible is considered the primary truth because it is there whether or not you want to accept it. It's not based on your accepting it.
So to speak, it's a concession to...
It's a concession, right? But it's a concession, that's right. And that becomes the basis.
Now, the literal translation of tangible means that you can touch, right? Also.
Yes, you can touch it. Touches you, it touches other things. It's an undeniable presence.
Stands on.
You can't.
I have to limit it. Yes, that's the gospel.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll never get out of it.
You can't just say that the Elokus, which only has a presence unless people are
Huh?
You're saying that as a contrast to Elokus, which is only has a presence in the world unless people, only if people acknowledge it.
That's the way it is perceived. That's the way it's perceived. That Elokus is something you like to, it's your preference, but it's not something which comes to you. You go to it. Therefore, it's not. It cannot be the basis of knowledge.
You just happen to be here, and the material world happens to be here also.
I'll have to limit it. I'll just present the thing. You'll elaborate the theory it says. But then there's another totally other reality. There is a godly reality. The godly reality is known as clearly and as objectively and beyond in the Chochmah. And this is what the Rambam says. The first principle is to know that there is a first being. That knowledge that is a first being, if one is honest with his own mind, knows that this is the primary reality. The physical reality does not explain anything. Why is there a physical reality? It's just you have to accept it. The reality as Chochmah perceived it, where it says it's real because it's real, not because I must accept it, is this first being. That everything else is secondary. Everything else has a secondary level of presence, not the primary level of presence. If there is a presence, it's because it was brought into existence. The primary level of presence, this is in a different way. This is a truth which is beyond tangible, beyond knowledge, beyond understanding. And this is the basis for Chochmah. Because what is the Iyar Chochmah? The Iyar Chochmah is to know the truth. The basis of knowing the truth is to know this primary reality, truth. Therefore, since that in order for something to exist, it has to have be substantiated, it has to have the basis, the background of this etzem, of this which is known, which exists on its own, the true existence. Therefore, everything is rooted in this etzem, and is brought forth into this etzem. And anything, a true presence, has everything that this etzem has, because that is what gives it a presence. And I'm going to give you a mashal, and that'll seal this off. The mashal is very simple. We have objects. And there are many ingredients, many things that cause various objects. That is, and some of them is based on human perception, on concept, on wisdom, and smarts, and technology, and so forth. There's one basic reality that provides for everything that exists, and that is space. So time and space. Space, it'd be easier to us speak in space because time is much more elusive. But space, we can deal with a little bit, because space has really a presence. And we literally see we can put things in space. The important thing to understand about space and what gives things reality because it is in space is that this same space that is occupied by this object has unlimited possibilities. It is not limited to this object. If it were limited to that object, it wouldn't be real. Then it is just a subject. Therefore, the subject is not really real. What gives things reality? The fact that they are in space, and you cannot put another object in this same place with this. In other words, it occupies all the possibilities that space provides for this moment. This is why it's real. This is the meaning that every koyach is rooted in the etzem. And the real, it has a presence is because it has an etzem, it represents an etzem. There's an etzem quality. Okay, Baruch? With your permission, we'll call this a closure, okay? Okay, so this is what we explained, that in everything there's all the ingredients of the Etzem. And this is why they're able to combine with everything else. Now we are saying, in a very brief 2 lines, that there is another element of it where it is necessary to be hiskalus. And that is when 2 opposites that are pshutim and atzmiyim, pshutim and atzmiyim. Okay, now pshutim and atzmiyim. This is what we dealt with the last 2 shiurim actually to understand what this is referring to, because as I pointed out, we were talking about pshutim, and in saying them pshutim includes everything. Now we're saying pshutim atzmiyim bilti murkov. It doesn't have harkov. It is not. Formed. It does not have ingredients of the opposite. It has only that koyach. And this is in pshutim ba'atzmiyim. Pshutus v'atzmus. Now, the point to understand here that when we talk about the presence of the koyach, then it has all kinds of ingredients in order for it to be present. Atzmus, poshut and atzmus is a different level. The union of etzem does not have a presence. Etzem, in general, we spoke about the union for etzem, that etzem does not exist in the world. There's no such thing as an etzem in the world. Because in order to be in the world, it has to, like you said, you have to occupy space, it has to have everything. Etzem is not a creation. Etzem, this is the sword, this is the Motzu Rishon Mamtzi Kol Nimtzo. This is etzem. Mitzad the Motzu Rishon Mamtzi Kol Nimtzo. Whatever he wants to bring out, it has an etzem presence. But it's present not because it is present, but because he wants it to be. It's a completely different presence. So that he wants this to be, then this purity is there because he wants it, not because it has a presence. And therefore, in there are no harkova. It's purely that.
If we say that he wants it to be, why do we say that it's a real thing at that point? It's just he wants it.
It's on his rots.
I'm sorry.
No. This is in line with what we're discussing, to the extent possible.
Presence, isn't that also because of his rotzing? Why is this different than that first thing?
There's two types of ritzonos. The rotzen that he should be present, and rotzen that remains in the rotzen.
What's the last thing? Rotzen that does what?
He wants, and it remains there because of rotzen, not because of its own presence.
It doesn't acquire a presence in order to be there.
Right. For those of us who became a little bit more sensitive to our mashalim, to the mashal of the host and the guest, there are many things that are expressed by their interaction. All of these things have a real presence. Like I said, the lunch and the welcome and all that. There's an element that has no ingredient whatsoever. It is just the actual presence. And there is no way to explain what that represents. This is just the pure truth of the presence. Same is found when there is the Iyar that when the etzem is present only as a result of etzem. There is no etzem outside of that. Etzem means an absolute amit is himot emes. If Eish has an emes, so then it is due only because the emes wants Eish. There's no other thing there. It is there because the emes wants it. So there are no ingredients whatsoever.
Does this have anything to do with what you spoke about yesterday at the Verwegen about rotzing?
Baruch, it's not going to help us to understand it.
It's real even before it's real. It's
right. Its presence is because of the etzem, not because of its presence.
But yet we say it has a presence there.
It has a presence on the etzem. We learned later on. Was later on the Kadmon and Nitzchi. Do you learn already?
We learned already. Yeah.
Have you learned? So over there also we were required to understand a very fine thing. I don't know to what extent it actually reverberated. But the Rebbe says like this, that Loi kol nitzchi kadmon. This is from Paltiel Rimon. That not every nitzchi is a kadmon. Kadmon means a pristine, original. And the Rebbe points out, and also from Paltiel Rimon, that the world could be a nitzchi berotzen habev. And we explained what that means. Could be a nitzchi berotzen habev. Not that he will continue to recreate it. That's not a nitzchi. That means it ceases to be and recreated. Nitzchi means that it has inherently an inyan of nitzchius. So there are two inyanim in the world. There is the presence of the world, which cannot be nitzchi. It's a creation which dissipates all the time. And then there is the rotzen habeira that the world should be. The rotzen habeira the world should be. This is the real presence of the world. Everything else is the result of that. It's a temporary. This is the real thing. This is what we had said just before. Chochmah, explaining the Rambam. There is a reality that's identified by presence. I'm touching it. Chochmah does not subscribe to that. That's not real to Chochmah. I want to know what's real, what's behind it. What is the essential reality that has an origin, an origin of truth. That's the Rotzen. This Rotzen, this remains an ineliki. And the world is Rotzen habeira in the world. And that is what gives the world its reality. And from that perspective, it could be a nitzchi. And it is part of the world.
How does that get into the world? Like, that exists only inside the Etzem. And yet we say it's in the world.
That's right.
How does it get
there?
there?
Because the Etzem wants the world. The Rebbe explained that this is part of Seder Hishtalshelus. Because the Seder Hishtalshelus begins from Rotzen. Remember that we had discussed it a lot. The Seder Hishtalshelus and the minor Seder Hishtalshelus.
This is a marshal for the Koyach in its pristine state.
That's right.
The world as it exists, just mitzad the Rotzen habeira.
Right.
It's like you're running a Tanya,
the marshal for this that we have at our level is there's a clock on the wall. Now the clock was put up there, and it'll last a certain amount of time, and then it'll burn out. You'll have to replace it. The clock is there not because there is a clock and because there is a wall. That's temporary. That's insignificant. It represents a completely different truth. Should the clock burn out, it's going to be another clock there. If there is another clock, it's still there. Mitzad, because as a human being living in this home, and mitzad the rotzen home of this human being, there's a clock on the wall. And if it broke, if it's not there, that is temporary. But the reality that this is a human home, it has it. Just as a very simple illustration. I think this is something which we are capable of understanding, and I would urge you to understand these principles. These are subtle truths, subtle realities, which exist in the human arena as well. And the reason it exists in the human arena because a human being, as we pointed out many times, is an atzmi. Because the Rebbe has put in human being a godly quality, a godly truth. We discussed it many times in all kinds of different illustrations, which we should understand. We should be sensitive to this. That will help us understand many things like this. And this is the Inyan, that there is a koyach atzmi, which is not just the presence, it's a mitzado etzem. Atzmiyim. What means atzmiyim? What's the difference between pshutim and atzmiyim? Pshutim is a presence of a koyach. Atzmiyim is not a presence. Anything that's present is not atzmi. So, if we, coming back to our first step in today's discussion, the world versus Torah versus a human being, the world, the primary basis of judgment, of study, is a presence. Torah, primary basis, is not presence. Presence is already another thing. What is the first word in the Torah? Bereishis. Bereishis, there's a beginning. Bereishis bara Elokim, actually. All presence is a godly creation. What is the real truth? Is the godliness behind it. That is what the Torah is telling you. Torah is not telling you there is a world. The world is telling, Torah is telling God created the world. If you want to relate to the truth world, you have to see it from that angle. Then you have a real world. It's exactly what the Rambam says.
You can have the same pasuk, take two completely different things out of it. Say, okay, there's a world, or you could say, what's the
That
road?
is the whole teaching of the world. That's what the Rambam says. You saw it, I say, from the Rambam begins from Beis. That is the principle that the Torah is telling. Rambam begins according to his Mishnah Torah. It's exactly what the Rambam says. If you really want to study and understand the world, this is where you should start. And if you start the next step, you have a perverted world, a crazy, idiotic picture, and you live with it. And the human being comes from monkeys. And you have no choice but to accept it. Hey, I approve. And yes, Baruch, I can see how you made the connection. This is what we discussed yesterday, that really it is the highest that connects everything. It's not the Matthias in the world, it is the source of it. Okay. Okay. Now we go inside.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
The Kocha Atzmi, this is as it's in Ratzon Elyon, or this is even Kocha Atzmi, this is as it's in Ratzon Elyon, or this is even like beyond that?
Yeah, it's under Ratzon Elyon.
Ratzon Elyon is like, okay, Ratzon Elyon is not the presence.
No, it's right. There's a Ratzon Atzmi. It's under Atzmi. That's not a place. Okay, we'll leave it at that, yeah. Avol, however, okay, so we are on the line that begins with Etzem Hamay. And it's approximately 10 lines from the bottom. As a matter of fact, I think it is 10 lines. Avol yesh b'chinas hasholem ho'elyo in yoisir. However, there is the aspect of Shalom Elyon, a higher Shalom than what we discussed. That we discussed that the Shalom comes because the ingredients of the Etzem is present everywhere. Now, but that would not allow for the unification of amongst Etzem Koiches. There is a higher Shalom Elyon Yesod. Asher ois ha hiskalalus, which affects a hiskalalus, gam bein beis ha-hafochim ha-pshutim v'ho atzmi. Even between two opposites, the pshutim and atzmi, the essential opposites, not that which provides for their existence, but that which they represent the Etzem itself. And this is what the pasuk refers to when it says, Ham sheva fachad imoi oisa sholem. This is the pasuk that is constantly for Ham sheva fachad imoi. Rule and pachad and awe is imoi with him. Oisa sholem bimreimov. He makes peace bimreimov in his higher domain. And until this, the Gemara says, Mechoel sar shel mayim. Now this is where Mechoel the sar shel mayim, the principle of mayim, and then Gabriel and some shel eish, and Eimachad said they do not extinguish one another because of the presence of Ham shel Vafachat Imo. The Haino, and that means that is speaking about and trying to express the fact that Gam K'moi Shehem B'Pshituson, that even as they are at that level, B'Pshituson, in the Pshitus presence, not in their presence, but in the Pshitus element, Yischabru v'Yiskalalu, that they should join v'Yiskalalu, not only join, but actually include. How is it possible? It would seem impossible that two hafochim be'etzim, two opposites that are essentially through and through hafochim, and yet they should yiskalu. Im loy. If not, Shem Mizbatli Mikol Ikin Mitziyusa no Mahusa. The only way that can be perceived, projected, that two opposite be'etzem hafochim should intercorrect and interinclude is only if Mizbatli Mikol Ikin Mitziyusa no Mahusa. They lose their Mizbatli from the principle of their whole Mitzias and Ohusa. The words Mizbatlu Mikol Iken Mitzius and Ohusa is explaining that what we mean is not that they should as a present cease to exist, but their ikor, that their core, their principle should cease to be. They should be misbattle mikol ikim mitziyusam. But an etzem is through and through. How can etzem be misbattle? And yet, this is the only way that this is possible. That is battle mikol ikim mitziyusam mahusam. Ad she'eino nechshovim b'mitzius eishomayim klal. To the extent that they will not be considered of Eish and Mayim at all. Not that they have no presence, but they have no presence of fire and water. Like we said before, you can get rid of the clock, but you can't get rid of the significance of the clock. Here we're talking about getting rid of the significance of Eish and Mayim, of the essential reality of Eish and Mayim. Not the presence of Eish and Mayim. Ein nechshavim b'mtzius eish u'mayim, mtzius of fire and water. I want to, for clarity and emphasis, like we speak lately of the Indian of a kol dover reitzi b'kiyumei. Everything wants to be kayim. I appreciate it. Thank you. Reitzi b'kiyumei. So we pointed out, reitzi b'kiyumei is not the Darwinian statement. It wants to exist. B'kiyumei means it wants to be what the Rebbe should declare it to be, because it has an essential truth. Eish wants to be fire, not to be. Mayim wants to be water. Why? Because fire and water have an atzmisiki truth, a godly truth. And this is what they want to be. And then this godly truth, this etzim, amitis shabahem, should be in this battle to the point where they are not eish and mayim. And how does that happen?
That means they're no longer Reitzi B'kiyumei?
No. They are no longer Reitzi B'kiyumei as Eishen Mayim, because now they realize a higher Inyan. This is a beetle. Normally he wants to be Eishen Mayim, because Eishen Mayim, this is the etzem truth that he knows. It's an atzmisiki truth.
Rabbi Paltiel, what's the word hamshel?
Hamshel rule. Moshel. Moishel.
Moishel, of rulership.
Rulership.
What one is it?
Okay, so there is battle nimtzios eishomayim. Alkin yiskalu yach, and that's what permits for them to be miskal together. What is it that infects this type of beak? That they are battle mi'iker mitziyusa. Again, it's not that he is not there as a mitzias, but he is not there as a mitzias of fire. How can fire cease to be fire? It's an essential truth. It's a godly truth. And the answer is Mipnei Behu, and that is Mipnei Shemeir Aleim Oir Elyoin, because they bestowed upon them Oir Elyoin, a supreme Oir, Mipchinas Malchus Da'atzilus, from Malchus Da'atzilus. The reason we talk about Malchus Da'atzilus is because of the Moshe of the Gemara. The Gemara says we have Briel and Michoel. Gabriel and Michoel are both in Bria, and that is their true presence. Gabriel is fire, and Michoel is water, Chesed and Gvura. Then there is a supreme Oir Meir Alei Mipchinas Malchus Da'atzilus, Shagoveya Me'oid Nailo, that is much more superior. Mikol Iker Mokir is Havusam. Mikol Iker Mokir is Havusam. It's much higher than the whole basis of their existence, the source of their existence. Mokir is Havusam. Shemizbat Limari Deizeh, whereby they become bottled. Mikol Iker Mitziyusam. From the whole principle of Mitzius, v'yiskalalu yachad. And then they will nichel together.
So the reason for mentioning Oyer of Malchus Atzilus is because of what it is that we're talking about uniting.
Right.
This is not a unique effect of Malchus of Atzilus. It depends on what level you're on, basically.
Right. The truth is that everything comes from Malchus Atzilus, the whole Bria. But there it comes into a tzimtzum. When Nisgala, the Iker, the Etzem, Oyer Malchus Atzilus, Oyer Elyon, and that, they become this battle and then a Nichel Yachid.
This is just the Gavril and Michael are just the mashal because they're not really Atzmiim, right?
They're Atzmiim in the form that they were created. In the form that they were created in Bria. And they are Inyan for existence is Asian mind. There's a saying. There's a saying for Predic and Rebbe. You know, in the Bavisher Yeshivas there are two branches. There's the Rosh Yeshiva for Nigla, and then there's the Mashpia for Chassidus. And there is time for both. There's a time to learn Chassidus, a time for Nigla. Each one has his period. He has to fill, make sure Talmidim attend his times and they do their utmost during this time. So the Rebbe once said, he was talking to the two heads of the yeshiva, one from Nigla and one from Chassidus, and he said, there's too much peace between them.
The Rebbe said it.
The Rebbe said there should not be peace between them, because the Baal Nigla wants Davke Nigla and the Chassidus wants Davke Chassidus. So they tell them that the Baal Nigla once said to the Baal Chassidus, he says, Nirpim atem nirpim. Alkin atem oimrim l'chol nizbach la'Hashem. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to Pare, and he said, I want to take the people to do Avodas Hashem 3 days out. So Pare said, hey, it's because you don't want to do the work. So you're looking for an alibi. You want to go nizbach Hashem. So the Baal Nigla says you don't want to labor in learning Nigla, and that's why you go nizbach Hashem. You're going to daven and learn whatever you do Avodas Hashem. Nirpim matem nirpim. So the other one immediately started. That's Palestine.
Right.
So, in the essential element, let's understand the essential element over here of Michael and Gabriel. I understand where the difficulty is. They are as a malach, it's a creation. But as we said before, what is the real presence of the world is the Elohim that created it. Michael is chesed, is mayim. But the mayim that Michael represents is not because he likes mayim, but because this is what the Rebbe wants him to represent. The same thing Gabriel is not because he likes Eish, but because the Rebbe wants him to want Eish. Therefore, they are there not because of their presence. They are there only due to the Ratzon Elokim. a malach is a presence, but he's not a real presence in our sense. Like a malach can speak in the name of Hashem and speak directly. I. Not like a human being that says Hashem said so. He has to speak I because at that time when he's a shliach, he is one thing with the Medrash. He's one thing with the Mishalech. So therefore this is Ayin Atzmi in the Malach. The Ayin Atzmi in the Choel and Gavil, the Maim and Eish, is not just to counter one another, but each one has their presence in an initial basis. So therefore, how can there be hiskalus yachad between them? That can be only if there is a higher oyer, and he defines what this higher oyer is. So the way I made Nailam Mikol Iker Mokir is Habuso. It is the oyer from Malchut Atzilus that is much higher than Iker Mokir is Habuso, than the source of their creation. Not the source of their creation, higher than the source of their creation. The Iker the pure in Hamalchus. And therefore, she misbatli malidezem mikol Iker mitziyusa. And therefore, the misbatl as a result from their home Iker, the principle of them is in mitziyus v'skalalu yachad.
This battle b'neihem is the same as Oseh Shalom b'neihem.
That's what it is.
It's not that they're so. Is he still chesed? Is he still water, or is he completely becomes nullified into kind of not any attribute?
No. They are still water, and they're still fire, but the water and fire are no longer at the water and fire level. I'll explain in a moment. This oil is higher than Mokiris Havusam, higher than the source of their existence. Now, Malchus the Atzilus is the source of their creation. And here we're saying that there's an oil letting from Bechinas Malchus, from the beginning of Malchus Atzilus. That is the source of all creation, from Malchus Atzilus. Actually, we have a marshal here coming to give us a handle on this principle. So the time is very late. I just want to go into the marshal a little bit, and we'll elaborate in Mitzvah tomorrow. This is, as an example, the Beis Sodim, two ministers. Which are opposite and oppose one another, betachlis, to the extreme, because each one wants to fulfill his mission. He has his mitzvahs. And each one who yesh God lifnei, each one is a great presence on his own. When they would come, these two ministers would come in front of the king, who is separate and superior, be'erech. He is in a different category. And totally, in a totally supreme, in a different category completely. Yizbat lo mikol mitziyusum ligamri. They will lose their mitzvahs totally, and they will unite totally, as if they are exactly one thing. not just in a manner of pshara, of making a deal, of a compromise. Shemishtab im zeh, that they make a deal and come through between themselves. Kiyim, but rather ki'ilu heim b'deyo achas mamash, as if they actually have one and the same opinion. B'deyo achas. And that is because they come in front of the king. So I said we'll discuss this mission tomorrow. I don't want to be late. I just want to say just one word regarding this motion. This is a principle which we constantly bring up. As a matter of fact, this is also something we spoke about yesterday. Just as we speak about in emotional and human life, in the home there is a table and chairs. It is not because on a practical level you have to have a table and chairs. But it is because this is part of the essence of the human being. A human being has to have a home, like we say all the time. Odom saying a Beis in the Odom, which is not because of convenience and any kind of functional significance. That it is of the essence. The same thing by Melech. There are two sorim. This one is the minister of the treasury, and this is the minister of internal affairs. This one spends money, and this one's trying to save money. So they are at odds with each other. But the reason there are these two ministers is not because we need two ministers to handle these affairs, but because in Mitzad Melech there is Mitzad Melech there are this reality. Elaborate to tomorrow, but the point is that it has a root in the essence of the Malchus itself, not on a practical level, but in the essence of the Malchus itself. Therefore, since that it has a root in the essence of the Malchus, even though practically each one fulfills his service in the Melucha in his particular way, but the root of these particular ways is much higher. The root of particular way is not because each one serves a practical purpose, but because of the essential element of Malchus, which is much higher from the practical element that they represent. So therefore, when they come in front of the Melech and they sense that original origin of Malchus, then they think they join together completely, because they think from a different level completely. The mission tomorrow will have a chance to elaborate on this. So we have to conclude now. Baruch, tell me if the sound is good.
The sound was very good today, yeah. I mean, it even picked up a lot of the background noise in the shul, which is not so good, but your voice was very clear.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. So that investment paid off. All right, so have a good day, everyone.
A good Yom Tov.
A good Yom Tov, Kol.
Yeah.